thank you HPIE 2.0 to bring in this very important topic. I think when we talk about infrastructure, medical equipment planning, financing, procurement happens to be a very important part of the whole jigsaw puzzle. And the supply chain, of course. My name is Milind Deshpande. I am from Medica Bazaar. I've been in the healthcare domain for last 3 decades, mostly downstreaming the medical equipment supplies in the markets. But now I joined a purpose with Medica Bazaar to strengthen an ecosystem between providers and the manufacturers. So this topic is very close to me, and so honored to be part of this large, nice panel. And if we can bring about some discussions, and if it is okay with you all, maybe we start with areas of setting up and planning to, let's say, challenges to a transformation, and end of the discussion if we can have some advisories coming in from that, which would be probably a takeaway from this discussion. Yeah, so maybe I can start the first question. I would lead the first question to Archana ji. I mean, you've seen one of the largest setup in Faridabad from Amrita Hospital, and also importantly, whilst the COVID was full in force, could you share some aspects in terms of setting up a hospital? What are the attributes on that? How did COVID affect hospital setups? And maybe it's a longish kind of a question, but everybody can join there. That would there be any ways in which we look at the setups in the coming times?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we had a discussion last week on this supply chain procurement discussion. So my first agenda around this thing was to highlight the importance of supply chain in any standard healthcare delivery system. Because before COVID, I think the importance of supply chain, whatever we were struggling behind the curtains, was not that, we can say that, not that highlighted. And during COVID, we have seen a huge crunch, and the supply chain department and the support department, they have maintained the logistic part very well during the COVID. And we were somehow able to maintain a good patient care and a quality patient care during the entire thing. So, talking about a new project, as you told that I am taking care of the Asia as one of the biggest hospital in terms of bed capacity. So, during COVID or pre-COVID, we have seen a lot of logistic issues, a lot of cost issues. So, due to lockdown, all the project which was under construction or which was under planning, their project costs have gone up to 2% or up to two times or 2.5 times around the normal costs. Because due to this global pandemic, the entire globe or entire world have realized the need of to setting up basic healthcare on ground. And we have seen post-COVID so many governments and so many setups are especially working on expanding or creating a new infrastructure around healthcare delivery services. So that leads to a huge demands in existing setups, the equipment part, the infra part, the we can say all kind of resources. We are now facing a huge challenge in terms of the cost inflation, because whatever we used to get before COVID at certain cost, we have to pay almost 25 to 30% more than that. So this is one of the challenge. The next challenge is the lead time. Before COVID, if we are going for a standard medical device, it usually take more than, I think, 4 to 8 weeks. But after COVID, to get even a single product like IBP machine, a heart lung machine to start a new cardiology department, or something, a new robot to start a different department, it is almost 3 months average lead time due to the global supply chain disruption, as well as we have seen many of the part in worldwide, they have stopped or they have shut down their operation for very small spare part of these medical equipment. For example, chip. for example, semiconductor. The entire world know the shortages in semiconductor. So, and apart from that, we have seen the functions, supply chain. The one good part of the supply chain, healthcare supply chain, is moving towards an online-based supply chain or IT tech-based supply chain. Because during COVID, we have seen the 5 days of working or work from home, and here we were available on the ground 24 into 7. So the moment of a quality manpower is getting out of healthcare and getting that kind of quality manpower, the costing on that manpower is again becoming on very high side. So these are the few challenges I can say. So
Yeah, I think I must say that not only at the time of infrastructure, but these kind of costs, disruptions, and the time, they also become a part of the operations as well, running a hospital. Maybe whilst this hospital is in the metro, probably it would be also nice to see that whether in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, whether these kind of supply chain issues, whether they were the part which how were they behaving, and what are the things which we see from the pandemic there. I think Ankit can probably take that through.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ankit Jain from Ujala Cygnus Healthcare, Delhi. So, as Sir questioned about the Tier 1 part or supply chain challenges, Archana very well explained about the challenges in Tier 1 cities for the supply chain, metro cities for the supply chain, big setup, hospital setup challenges of the supply chain. But the question from Sir is related to tier 2, tier 3 and rural area of the India. I would like to tell you about the healthcare infrastructure of India in a small time. More than 90% population of India lives in tier 2, tier 3 and the rural part of the India. But majorly quality healthcare services are still depending on the metro cities. We are having maximum population in rurals, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 and rurals, but still they all are depending. I'm also belongs from the tier 4 cities. So we are still depending for the quality service to the metro cities. Like we have quality hospitals here only or in other metro cities only, but in tier 2, tier 3 we don't have that type of quality structure over there. And the surprisingly or sadly, I'm saying no major healthcare group is looking forward for that city. Still, they are waiting for the good corporate groups for the healthcare services. Still, they are waiting. These cities are waiting. Ujala Healthcare is the one of the healthcare supply chain, healthcare service provider chain who is started around 20 hospitals in tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 cities, and they are trying to give the same services which is we are getting at tier 1 cities like Fortes, Max, Amrita, Apollo, Max in that tier 2, tier 3 and tier cities. So the only group which I'm seeing, which the only group Ujala Cygnus is trying to give that level of services, but most of companies or major suppliers, major brands are available here. We have to look forward for the tier 2, tier 3 cities. If I talk about the supply chain challenges in tier 2, tier 3 cities, so there is 3 4 main challenges coming out. The number one challenges is coming out that quality manpower. The availability of quality manpower in tier 2, tier 3 cities biggest challenge at present. Actually, majorly जो हमारे रूरल्स के और टीयर 2 टीयर 3 सिटी के जो अच्छा मैन पावर होता है, क्वालिफाइड मैन पावर होता है, वो टीयर 1 में ऑलरेडी मूव हो जाता है. बट टीयर 2 में जब हम सर्च करने जाते हैं तो वी आर नॉट गेटिंग दैट मच ऑफ क्वालिफाइड और दैट मच ऑफ highly professional employees over there. The one and main point is main power. Another point is digitalization in the healthcare sector. So we are still, although government is focusing for the digital India, but still the reality is ki in tier 2 tier 3 cities we are still waiting for the actual digitalization. Like hospital is still running without the HIS softwares. They are still if I talk about the supply chain, they are still ordering manually. They are still using the phones for the ordering. They are not keeping any records. They don't have any analytic data. So digitalization is another challenge in tier 2 tier 3 and rest of the India. Transportation is another challenge. Abhi bhi hum agar we have a hospital in Srinagar, but if I want to supply any product in Srinagar next day, it's next to impossible at present. बट अगर हम अपनी गाड़ी लेके जाएंगे तो हम नेक्स्ट डे मॉर्निंग पहुंच सकते हैं, बट कोई भी सप्लायर यहाँ से नेक्स्ट डे श्रीनगर के लिए अवेलेबिलिटी कराने के लिए रेडी नहीं है. उसके लिए प्रॉफिट भी देंगे, सब कुछ देंगे, फिर भी नहीं तैयार है. सो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इज अनदर चैलेंज. ऑर्गेनाइज सप्लायर सेटअप. अगर हमारे लिए टीयर 2 टीयर 3 सिटीज़ में ऑर्गेनाइज सप्लायर्स वहाँ पे ही अवेलेबल होंगे तो टीयर 1 से लेने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी, बट वो वहाँ पे अवेलेबल नहीं है. मोस्ट ऑफ कंपनीज are denying to give the vendors in that area. तो we are still depending on the metro cities कि दिल्ली से ही भेजना है, बॉम्बे से ही भेजना है, नहीं तो मिलेगा नहीं सामान, नेक्स्ट डे सप्लाई नहीं हो पाएगी, सर्जरी नहीं हो पाएगी, आपका सेटअप क्या काम करेगा. सो दे आर द मेन चैलेंज. और पॉइंट्स आर टू मच, बट अभी थोड़ा सा आई थिंक सो टाइम की शॉर्टेज है.
Yeah, please.
See, I'm from Northeast. We are setting up 17 hospitals through Assam Cancer Care Foundation. So during COVID, these constructions were going on. So there were government restrictions and many restrictions, and we were facing a huge challenge ki how to build these hospitals in time, because during COVID this time and cost overruns. So what we do, we adopted the contractor was among the best, means in the best in the country. So we adopted the resource optimization method. So basically the labor at a site where 100 laborers are required, so there were only 30 laborers around. So what we requested and what we advised to our contractor, that you put those resources to the most priority areas where this construction needs to come up very fast, so that we can start at least some services and we can generate some revenues after starting. And as said by my colleague, both of the colleagues, that supply chain was a total failure during the COVID time. So still we have after effects of it. So the delivery period of equipment and many other things have been extended a lot.
Sure. I mean, just probably as a, one thought, that if you look at most of the OEMs today in India, and I was also privy to one, that they have in their thoughts of penetration into tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India. Okay, on one side the GDP spread is fairly getting moved from the metros to, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities are getting a fair share of GDP. At the same time, the aspirational values in tier 2, tier 3s are also coming up, saying that we would like to bring in a setup, both from government as well as from the private industry. So that becomes an opportunity. Whilst at Madika Bazaar, we did that into a play where one of the purposes that we have is to make the healthcare accessible and affordable. And as we talk, there are 40 fulfillment centers across. So I think we are all connecting to this part as how to make an accessible healthcare in India. But while taking this on the challenges, maybe are there any transformation happening, Rakesh? If you could bring in supply chain, are there? Do you see any ways in which the transformation is happening?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rakesh Aggarwal. I'm heading the supply chain of Indian Spine Injury Center. So first of all, I would like to add in the previous topic one thing like the hospital chains and hospitals want to set up their setups in the tier 2 and tier 3, but you will see the government policies and state policies are not favorable to them. If I go to the Rajasthan, there is a Chiranjeevi policy is there where the cost of the treatment is too less and hospital not able to run. They want to give the quality treatment, quality implants to the patient, so quality you can say drugs to the patient, but the cost of the package is very less. So going to the tier 2 and tier 3 is difficult now because of the politicians and war fighting state policies. Now, there is a need, but there should be common policy. Should be not in the state wise, it should be pan India wise. Now coming to my question to answer that, you see the supply chain versus looks very small, and if you see the history of the supply chain, you will find this department always in the basement and in the corner near to the mortuary always. ठीक है so we people are neglected like anything purchase तो मेरे भाई भी कर सकता है वो people thinks that purchase and supply chain can be managed by anyone okay and the people who are studying their degrees and taking MBAs and nobody was taking मेरा brother बैठा है मेरा brother-in-law बैठा है वो बैठा है he will negotiate because they want a trustful but post COVID there is a like boom has there is a people has thought about the supply chain. You will see the like we want the food or pizza within 10 minutes and on Japto and these services started now within 10 minutes you are getting everything. So tools are same, but how to utilize those tools, the normal minimum order level, reorder level, those optimizations are set. Coming to that point, like if we have a stock in our hospital, but because of it's spread in different areas, so we should have that kind of dashboard or tools with us so that we can daily analysis the data and we can daily admit whenever I'm getting any demand from the any of the area of the hospital and any of my customer within the hospital that stock is available in my hospital. Can I utilize that stock? And that is this emergency stock. So keeping in mind like the changes after post this COVID, we people came in the fear in the first COVID like we were not getting the material and whatever we are buying PP kit and N95 masks and other masks. The quality, how is the quality? But still we were managing with that. And second wave was terrible for everybody. We people were fighting for the remdesivir. There's a similar drug was there. Oxygen masks are not there. BiPAP masks, oxygen. We have sent vans till like Haridwar and other people to get these cylinders for the people. Quality masks also till today. And now during the COVID, people have learned in first and second, and they bought so many stock during the COVID period, and even the second wave, and then third wave came, and people bought so much of stock, and now people started returning back to the vendors with the agreements and the sober Feviflu, where companies are not ready to take it back. Same that is remdesivir, they're not taking it back. So now people are moving to the VMI inventory, hospital service. That is vendor management inventory. So whenever I need something, there is a contract with the company people, I will do the PO, I need the material within 24 hours. So most of the hospitals are moving to the VMI. There's a main tool we people are using in current scenario. Second, forecasting. Forecasting is there, and because of the there was a learning of the COVID, there was a fear how we will manage. But post the third wave came in January of this year, people have learned that this will come and go and it will come and go. We should buy the inventory according to our requirement only, and even we should more focus on the VMI rather than going to the inventory in the historical historical data we were procuring earlier. Thank you.
Any other topics on this? But maybe this brings to a very important thing. I mean, you said that you fix this through some kind of an SLAs, if I may say so. But of course, in this time and age, there could be tools which are available for you to optimize that. And that again brings to the topic, Shailesh. I mean, on one side, the pandemic said that you got to stock. On the other side, there's a cost, and
So here,
And yeah, so overstocked is not
so
depleted.
here comes the proper resource allocation methods.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is part of project management. So
Right.
basically, in every day-to-day life, also we also manage our available resources in the most efficient and cost-effective manner. So basically, this is the key how we can sustain our hospitals or sustain our operations basically. So how we can deploy some methodologies so that the out-of-pocket expenditure of the patients can be reduced. So one is the resource optimization so that owners the cost and time overrun we can avoid. We can have, suppose you are building a hospital and there are some resource constraint or supply chain constraint. See, vendors also have some limitations. If they do not get material from outside or something, so like Siemens says now if we order MRI or CT, they will take at least 6 months time. At least 6 months time. So it is not like they do not want to sell it or they do not want to supply it. So basically, for these, the proper planning is required and the resource allocation is the method. Where you work for most critical area first, you take the most critical area first, and the non-critical area can be taken later on. So there are some methodologies which we can work upon. And regarding the sustainability, this is the resource allocation, and regarding the sustainability. So sustainability, which is in most of the hospitals, I have seen that it is an ignored part. Basically, environmental friendly buildings where we can reduce the energy bills, or we can the proper waste management. If we can use material which are reusable, not the disposable one. If we can autoclave and we can reuse, so by that we can reduce the operating expenditure. You see the monthly bill of any hospital electricity bill, it is huge. So we can adopt, and there are methods available in the market where these architects or contractors can suggest the owners that these are the methods where you can use the alternative source of energies, where ultimately it will benefit the final patient. It will reduce the out of pocket expenditure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that one of the thoughts is the way you look at the criticality, and from there you start looking at what needs to be addressed first. And somewhere in some discussion, I am not able to recollect now, but it just comes up to me saying that the stockout situations when the operations are lined up and the delays, or even for that matter, I think you said that there was spare parts a delay, and hospital operating rooms are so much hard that they probably are the ways to generate nearly from profitable hospital 50% of the is coming through the. So how do you manage these stockout ways or stockouts and delays in operating rooms?
So see, in any setup, stockouts and delays sometimes happens. So basically the proper planning or proper forecasting is required, and sometimes the planning fails, the forecasting also fails. So we need to have some alternative source of vendors or alternative arrangements in mind, or in the vicinity. If you have one vendor for one particular thing, then you should also have the alternative vendors who can have some material, so that you can avoid that stockout situation.
I mean, I'm sure that
And there are some aggregators like Medica Bazaar, or who has this capability. They have means there are many vendors or many warehouses available where somewhere we can use those facilities.
Yeah, so for sure, I mean, you basically mitigate your risk by building up a kind of number of suppliers and the vicinity and SLAs, as we talked about. But of course, in this time and age, there is room for technology. And maybe Jyoti, if you can bring is digitization or technology in some form or shape can help the problems during the setups or transforming the supply chain or for that matter, even optimizing the resources?
Thank you. Thanks. So I think we discussed a lot about the challenges we faced during the COVID. So supply disruption of the essential drugs, which was required, was that is one of the things we faced during the COVID times. So one of the thing now, we are not talking only about supply chain. We are working and talking about digital supply networks. So we have to move ourselves now towards the digital supply networks, wherein maybe pre-COVID we were working either in private sector or government sector. We were working or maintaining our supply chain and inventories more in just-in-time mode. So, but now people have realized that we need to have keep extra stocks and some alternative stocks, and for, especially for the essential drugs. And we should be ready for such situations and such pandemic as happened during the COVID time. So digitization and digital transformation is one of the most important aspects which must be taken ahead either by the government or private sector. So we should talk about it will bring visibility and vision for the future. We should be ready for such situation. So which we have to build in our procurement and supply chain management system, and it is only possible through the latest technology, artificial intelligence, which we talk a lot nowadays. So these things we need to build, and of course the for running all these and maintaining and taking our technology ahead, human resource is very important aspects. So these three are very important aspects we should take ahead, both in private and maybe through this such platform we can talk to our government to bring in some policies for the digital supply networks within our government system and private system, because still now the if we talk about data, the quality data is not available. So we cannot maintain supply chain until we have a correct data available from PHC level to the central level. So these kind of disruptions are still happening in supply chain. So and areas where we need to work upon. So we talk a lot about supply chain. I think procurement is also one of the very important aspects, and we need to move towards from cost-based procurement to value-based procurement. We should look more for vocal for local is becoming very common nowadays. So localization, local suppliers, we should promote Make in India, which already happening, but it should be incorporated more in our systems. So, for in this public procurement domain, I'll say GEM is another revolution which happened. Of course, GEM was already there, but post-pandemic and post-COVID, people have realized the importance of government want to bring the buyer and supplier. This is one of the great platform GEM is where we are bridging them together, and it should be taken ahead. So GEM is one of the revolution, and I think this is one of the area which everybody should be aware of, and either it's public or private sector healthcare system. Similar, like Medica Bazaar is one of the example which I came across. It's working on the same mode, and it is bringing the supplier and buyer in the same. So we need to interface such. So public procurement is and private procurement is also one of the aspects wherein we need to work. So digital transformation already we are coming and happening, but there are a lot which need to work on it.
Sure, I think pandemic in general, I mean, not only to the topic that we are talking about. Please, Archana, if you can.
Hi, I want to add few things because Jyoti ji has said too much about it, or we can say a lot of about it. The first thing I think about the technology side, I think we are also looking at better technology in healthcare delivery supply chain or healthcare supply chain. But our major concern is about the data and data privacy and data security. We all are aware about the recent incidents happens in Max, AIMS. So that is a concern because in India, I don't think so we have that kind of robust and better technology platform available. Plus, from a larger hospital or larger setup perspective, I am looking for an effective asset management system within the country, which also I didn't get from the market. These are the challenges. The technology part is another challenges. And Jyoti ji talk about the GEM portal and vocal for local. We can say vocal for local kind of this thing. But still, we have seen a lot of disruption about the basic patient safety and quality criteria of the brands available in India. First, we need to put a proper setup of the quality certification and everything, because we have seen whatever certification we have in terms of patient delivery and clinical safety, we are not at par at those bracket as compared to USFDA or any standard good country-driven CE certification and all. Apart from that, I think Dr. Nyogi has does talk about the costing of PMJ and why private sector are just pick and choosing the procedures and where they want to participate and where they don't want to participate. Out of these every procedures, I think we all know that 80% of the part is from the material and manpower. So buying a quality material onto those kind of segmentation is quite a challenge for us post pandemic. So this is one of the reason why most of the private hospitals are not participating on the volume based segment in under PMJ. So I think these are the basic challenge around the supply chain network across the India, in especially in healthcare delivery.
Sure, for sure. I think let's move on from these challenges to, let's say, all said and done. Vinay, I think you have been for a long associated with equipping, furnishing, and in fact, doing the materials for a big large hospital like Dinanath Mangeshkar. Um, all said and done, the materials, the costs or the overrun in cost have to be kind of in some way, fashion or the other funded, and therefore, whether you call it finance or whether you call it the way to to fund a particular procurement. Are there any things that you are privy to, or are there any kind of trends in which there are various ways in which you can fund your procurements?
Thanks, Milind. Thanks for inviting me here. I have seen two major shifts in last couple of years, or maybe last 5 years. The one major shift is this entire healthcare industry is, I don't know whether it is good or bad, but it is rapidly moving towards a capex and opex kind of a model. Previously, it was more capex, that most of the investment was done upfront in any medical technology, and then the operational expenses or the AMCs, CMCs were very nominal. But what is happening in last 5 years is most of the medical technology providers are shifting towards a so-called Gillette model, that you sell one razor, you take all the efforts to sell one razor, and then the hospital will have to keep on buying the blades. That's a big change happening, and it's risky, on both sides, not only on the hospital side but even from the seller side. Usually when it was only capex purchase, the decision was basically based on a very simple principle of making the deal win-win. That hospital is getting the best price, dealer is getting the best price, everyone wins and the deal happens. But now it's very unpredictable what is going to happen with that deal. If the hospital gives a wrong estimation of the workload for a so-called Gillette model, then the company loses, because they don't get that kind of a workload to justify the investment in that equipment or that system. I know Medica Bazaar is doing medical gas pipeline. It can happen that medical gas pipeline is made free of cost and the hospital will have to just purchase the gas from you. That kind of model is getting popular, and it is very difficult to predict the long-term consequence of this product. And the basic principle of transaction between hospitals and sellers, the win-win, is likely to shift either towards win-lose or towards lose-win. And that's one of the risky part what I see. The second major trend, of course, government of India is supporting all the Indian manufacturers to set up plants to manufacture medical devices, and that's happening across India in all segments, and it's a welcome step. It must happen, but at the same time, as hospitals, what we face is many times whenever we buy something from an Indian manufacturer, sometimes we find that there is a lack of accountability. If I buy one operation theater table and from an Indian manufacturer and it stops working and the up-down movement is not happening, he will say that no, I think your multi-purpose worker must have played with it, your doctors don't know how to operate it. So there is no accountability. And second thing is there is no pride. So when a company like Siemens or Philips or GE sells their equipment, they have a pride that this is the best quality equipment and it will comply all the international standards and it will never fail. So that kind of pride also we don't see when the Indian manufacturers are selling this equipment. After hearing everyone, and since morning I have heard so many good speeches by everyone, what I feel that there is definitely a need for a pan-India regulator in healthcare. That's it. That's not a trend. That's not a question you asked me, but I have a very strong feeling that there is a need for a, like for stock exchange there is SEBI, for insurance there is IRDA, for every business there is a regulator, and in healthcare we don't have a super regulator. So there are efforts for NABH, but it will just monitor processes. They will not look into billing. There is FDA, but it will just monitor whether the supplier is compliant with the FDA rules. So I think that this entire forum should be used to represent to the government of India that there should be a regulator in healthcare that will make the things easier for everyone. Thank you.
I think very, very relevant point and very nice, I would say, a closing note. Shall we take it for that? And thank you for the honor of being part of this discussion.